Hello and welcome everyone to another edition of the Questing Community Podcast. I'm MZ.
I'm Spuds of the Apocalypse, and with us we have our guest Moloch. How about you introduce yourself?
Moloch. Well, uh, I my name is Moloch. I run quests on 4chan rather than Anonkun. Uh, I'm currently running a magical girl quest called Heavenly Child Quest.
Yeah,
Very good.
I've heard good things about Heavenly Child Quest. A lot of people seem to really like it, and it's one of the quests on QST that isn't completely dead, which is an accomplishment in itself. So why don't you tell us a bit about it?
Well, for a start, I don't have a huge in-depth knowledge of the magical girl genre, so it's not hugely magical girly, which may well be why people like it a little bit more than perhaps they would a normal quote anime unquote quest. Um, the main reason I had for running it was after I finished my last quest, Northern Beasts quest, I felt the need for something a little bit more light-hearted,
So it's fate,
um,
essentially.
a little bit less dour. So I thought I'll do a magical girl quest. I've been wanting to do that for a while, and it turned out kind of grim, miserable magical girl stuff. Not really. It's pretty low on. Well, it's pretty low on the suffering. I wanted to deliberately avoid wallowing in misery.
Yeah, that's quite interesting because I started Magical Girl Quest as just a short little basically short little shit post because I've always wanted to try the Magical Girl Fusion thing that was pitched in QTG all those years ago, but I sort of doubled down on the suffering and people really like it. I find it really interesting how um, there is definitely different audiences for both high suffering and low suffering.
So,
Well, I'm not sure
as
I
I
would have been able to.
well,
I'm not sure I would have been
so
able to run high suffering without
so
getting sick of
Moloch, as
it.
I understand
Personally, I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong to run high suffering, but I prefer a bit more mild.
it, you run quests, but you don't really read them. Is that right?
I don't often find the time to read them. They're often run in time zones when I'm either busy or asleep, and I'm not very good at archive reading, so I don't really read as many quests as I'd like to. Which I do think is a shame because I think there's a lot of
While
good
it
stuff out there.
might be a
Make things
shame,
quicker and easier to skim, certainly.
it does make you a good guest for today, no, for today's podcast, based on the theme we've come up with. MZion, how about you? Give us the rundown on today's podcast.
So basically, Spuds and I are going to chat about some of the quests we really enjoy. And since Moloka's base is almost guaranteed to have read a fat zero of them, sorry, Moloch, but we'll get your opinion on them and see if we can get you to pick up a quest just to read. Um, just a quick thing though, Moloch. I do have some things that could help you. Archive binge. There's this user script I had a while ago which makes the SupTG archives a lot easier to read. It lets you filter for specific posts, so you can just filter by QM and just get all of the updates in one long thing to make things a bit quicker.
Although
Robo,
I'm not one of these technology understanding people,
It takes like 5 minutes. I can help out in it. It's just downloading a plugin for Firefox or Chrome and then sticking a file into it.
Well, yes, I'll certainly give that a try if it helps me.
Something for
Helps get through the
that's something for after the podcast, I think.
something for after the show, certainly.
Yeah,
The
and
problem with
always remember
Anonkun
that
is
I think things on Aiken and questionable questing or whatever are a lot easier to read backlogs on compared to TG. But generally speaking, like if you use add-ons and stuff, none of them are really bad.
that chat isn't properly archived because of Casper's
Yeah.
code.
Well, hopefully that gets fixed.
It hasn't been fixed for like 5 years. It's not gonna happen, man.
Yeah, Kaz brings up a good point. It's the same with space battles and sufficient velocity because of thread marks. But then again, reading stuff on SB or SV. So, I think to start with, why don't we try one of your favorite spuds? Give us the name of it. Give us a quick rundown about what it's about, and then we'll see how Moloch
So, I've
thinks
talked about
and how
this
he
one a
reacts
lot.
to it.
Promise absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I've talked about this one a lot. Everybody who's ever heard me, everyone who's been following the podcast knows this is my favorite. Talked about it at least 3 or 4 times. It's called Sexual Encounter Quest. It was run by that one guy who wrote really well and changed his name every time. So it's Twen Internal Revenue System, whatever. He ran Sexual Encounter Quest, like I said, and he is somewhat interesting because he takes often very dull premises and makes them interesting, and he sort of lets them go where they may. And Sexual Encounter Quest was originally meant to be pure pornography, essentially. So the idea is that the main character has been is almost 30 years old and is a bit of a social is isolated socially and is going to try and pay for prostitution in order to resolve that. That's the basic premise of the quest, and everything follows from that. And he sort of just, I'm not sure how much he had planned ahead, but as the ships fell, it was like the main character is a 27-year-old woman who's a sort of a genius quantitative analyst at some sort of at a company that buys and sells stocks and such. I can't remember what it's called right now. And she is a multimillionaire, and she got it all based on her mathematical genius. But she has no friends, and she at all, and she has no social skills, and she's totally socially isolated. And so she sort of looks through her options when it comes to paying for prostitutes, and it's all handled entirely realistically. And then the QM gives a long list, but then the players decide that she chickens out. She decides not to do it, and it makes sense based on the entire context. She's a coward with no social skills. She doesn't dare to pay for prostitution, and the QM hands them a long list of options they can do instead, and they decide that she's going to buy a mercenary company. and everything is handled in a believable manner. It's very much based in a sort of real life setting, and they go through if the entire process of actually purchasing a private military contractor in a believable but exaggerated way. And it's like she has to prepare her clothing and think about how she presents herself when it comes to making the purchase. And then there's problems within the company she works with. It feels like a really really good HBO show in Quest format, and there's lots of twists and turns you don't expect, and it's all handled really well. And that's Sexual Encounter Quest. What?
Explained by a drunk man at the bar.
That would probably be easier, to be honest. So, Moloch, what did you think of that idea? You were interested in reading something like that?
I have heard people recommending the Sexual Encounter Quest before in numerous contexts and occasions, so I have to assume that it is highly regarded.
Well, I mean, to some extent,
I'm just missing
it's
out on the
about that
part
it's
where
a quest,
they
and
flunk out
there's a
on buying a
disconnect
prostitute because they're too
between
cowardly
the
and end up
story and the people
with
reading it, and
private
they ask
military
for what they want
contractors
to read.
instead.
But to some,
It's a little bit like
it also feels natural
there's a
inside the
gap in
quest
the logic
itself.
there, which again may be explained when reading the quest, which possibly encourages people to go back and, read it to find out exactly how they get in the situation they're in.
All right.
Well, it probably does.
Yeah. So, what's your first one then,
Um,
MZ? Since I've made my pitch.
well, for me, I have a handful of quests which I have really, really fond memories of. Um, and, I'm thinking I might recommend one of those. Uh, Now I think about it, the quest that I'm going to recommend first is one that, all things considered, I have a very rocky relationship with. At one point, I thought it was like like a really nice quest, a really good thing to read, and then I hated it for a while. Then I liked it again. Then I despised it. So one of the quests I'm going to recommend is probably like the biggest quest on Aiken, in terms of like words. And it's a quest, lesbians, magical stuff, etc., called The Evoker. Uh, so it's a very, very old quest, like so old it used to have you cross posting. But the general gist of it is that the main character is this magic wielder who's trying to find their lost love, and things get a bit rocky. She's clearly got something a bit wrong with her memory, and it's about a long journey through a countryside where, for some reason, every female character is inexplicably lesbian, and dealing with lots of problems as they come, exploring dangerous places, and then eventually, finding new characters, new daughter figures, and eventually confronting her past and resolving it. Uh, there are definitely some ups and downs. I don't think it's the perfect quest, but I think that it definitely deserves a read. It's absolutely excellent, in places, and garbage in a few others. But I really, I don't know, it's over now. And I think I enjoyed it quite a bit. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So I'd recommend you read that. So what do you think of that sort of idea?
That's sort of the way it came across.
You cut out there, I can't hear you. I still can't hear you. Ah, shit, is it my internet?
Nope, Spuds, it's not yours. It's just technical
Um,
difficulties as always. Thanks, Discord.
Well, while that's happening.
I don't really voice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm
You're
not quite
still
sure what to
you're
do. It's
you still can't really hear you. Maybe you should disconnect and reconnect.
Everyone enjoy the fun technical difficulties while we wait.
But yeah, no, you describe it like it was a wild ride, MZ, but I never heard a lot of complaints about it in chat. No, were there any big shitstorms or anything?
Yeah, regarding
Oh,
mind
yes.
magic. It's the reason I don't like mind magic.
I remember hearing about that at some point. Yes, now I remember.
So I guess Moloch's voice/internet has just like crapped completely.
I'm really not sure, to be honest.
That's
I
tough, man.
don't see a light on the thing when I speak.
The last sentence we've heard, but not before that.
Yeah, that one came out came out pretty good. Try again.
And
Well,
then
as I
there's
said,
a
I'm
big
not quite sure
pause
what
when
to
nothing gets through.
do. It seems like every second sentence I try gets through, which isn't entirely useful.
I mean, that got through. Yeah.
I'm not sure how we can actually resolve this issue. Well, maybe we can just keep talking and it'll fix itself eventually.
Could be. I mean, if it's just
Or
a rough
you could
patch.
restart his computers. Yeah. So
Yeah. I blame Moloch's internet provider. It's probably BT. BT are awful.
I mean, I think it's strange the concept of having bad internet providers. It's like you're from a different
Yeah,
universe
well, that's
entirely.
what happens when you
That's what
live
happens
in
when you
the
live
United Kingdom.
in the United Kingdom or America or a bunch of different other places. But it doesn't feel real, you know? It feels like a fictional thing. Bad internet providers, and it's like, I don't know, it's like not
Yeah.
real
Well,
when you're in glorious Sweden.
yeah, but Sweden has its own problems, dude.
Yeah, whatever. Well,
off
it's
that
because
very depressing
Well,
note
I
of
think we
problems
should
with
probably
Sweden is the
not get
politics,
onto
and
that
discussing
subject.
politics is never a good idea.
yeah, exactly,
People do it
Moloch.
anyway.
Good shout. Yeah. So,
You know, when I
Spud,
said we should not talk about it, that wasn't an encouragement to start talking
That
about
was the last
it.
thing I was going to say. But
oh,
let's
well,
move.
you're coming through a lot more now, which is good.
Anger. Clearly, my internet is just powered by anger.
Can you like? Do you have any impressions of the idea? No, of the quest MZ presented.
Well, I meant to ask, but the Discord apparently ate my question. It sounds like it puts quite a lot of focus on the character interaction. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes, I'd say the main thing about the quest is it has a very small cast of well-developed characters, and it's about how they deal with new challenges.
I'm not. I wouldn't. I don't know if it's my second
Which I would definitely
favorite, but
consider
it's
a
in the top
positive.
five at
That's
least, and I
definitely the
remember it
sort of thing
quite
I
well.
would look for in a quest. Because it's generally the sort of thing I enjoy reading about.
So you'd give that one a strong consider then?
I would certainly consider it, yes. I'll admit I don't read a lot of stuff on Acon, so I'd have to get used to the format, but you know, reading a quest on it could be a good way of doing that, so it, I'll treat it as a learning experience.
All right, cool. That's really good to know. I really like the Evoker, and I think it deserves a lot more praise, um, especially because it sort of got drowned out during the coming of new Anonkun. Um, all right, then, Spuds, would you like to chat to Moloch about your second favorite quest?
It's a quest on questionable questing. I think it's of my like top. It's the only one among my top 5 or 10, which is, but it's called Polyhistor Academy, and it's interesting because it represents a unification of like the characters' interests and the interests of the audience. It aligns what people want with what is like with what makes sense with for the main character. So, and because this is questionable questing, it's like sufficient. No, it's like space battles and sufficient velocity, in that there is a lot of interest in acting in an optimal or perfect way. And this and to make and the character fits into that in a very interesting manner, because to some extent he starts the quest as a sort of robot dedicated to the perfecting how to learn is like his ability. He's really good at learning things, and he's very stoic, and he doesn't have a lot of emotions. But over as the quest happens, he meets people, and he gets connections to them in the same way that the audience over the period of the quest go away from being extremely focused on expanding the abilities of the main character into connecting with the other characters. And the way it aligns the two is very interesting. Actually, I realized I haven't discussed the premise at all, and I suppose it is a bit of it's a bit cliche, and it's also, but it's done in an interesting way. The premise is that it's in sort of modern fantasy setting where most people don't know that magic exists. And the only real way you can get an education in magic without having parents to teach it to you is to go to a school where only 10 in 300 are allowed to graduate and the rest are killed. And it's about the psychological, and the quest has an element like the psychological pressure of of needing to improve, and the fact that anyone around you might betray you for their own survival at some point, because people kill each other in order to reduce the amount of slots, reduce the amount of people that can fill the slots at the end. So that's Polyhistor Academy. A, it's about a person who is very stoic and disconnected from any from human values, sort of finding relationship in a very high pressure situation. And that's the end of my pitch.
Well, one thing you meant
How does that
one
sound?
thing you mentioned did strike me as you said it's something
Yeah,
of a
no, I'd
cliched
say I did like
setting,
it.
but I've always really felt that a cliche can be still perfectly good and enjoyable to read if it's done well, and by all accounts, you'd make it sound as if it's it does take the kind of magic school idea and frames it well, which is it's hard to really provide this kind of a fair assessment,
Yeah.
I'd say, without checking through well, I completely forgot the word there. Checking through a sample, writing quality, that sort of thing. But I suppose the point of this is to encourage ideas to look up and read later.
we should be putting the quests
Yeah.
discussed uh, into the description of the YouTube video. So so if any of these quests sound interesting, just look down below in the
Yeah.
description and it'll be there.
Uh,
So I don't think you have anything more to say, but if you do, speak up. Uh, Otherwise, you
quick thing, like, but
can.
I've
I
got
think
like three quests I want to
it's your
talk about,
turn
but I just want to
because
make
I don't have
sure.
anything really more to say.
Spud. So
I've
one of your
considered it.
is your last one going to be BFQ? Decided not to.
And I decided not to. I decided, well, it's like this. I have a sort of like the thing is most of the other quests I like are either too close to polyester or to SEQ. And BFQ I think qualifies as too close to
Oh,
polyhistoric.
that's fine then.
So I was thinking that I
All right,
would
cool.
mention
Well,
some other
this
kind
is
of quest.
going to
So I decided against it.
I don't know, this is gonna be weird. Like, uh, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the exalted setting, Moloch, which is why I'm iffy on recommending the exalted quests because there are loads of them and I like all of them. So I'm going to just recommend a quest which uh seems to, have people be gets people very, very annoyed, or people basically either love this quest or hate it, and it's been going on for years. It's called Joker Quest. It seems to have created like a very small subsection of people who cannot live without the quest. It's sort of like what Hexa did to Kraz. So the story is it's this guy in a Axel world sort of thing where he spontaneously
Oh, we're talking about that Joker quest.
yeah, that Joker quest. The one with the guy who spontaneously goes into
That
another world
Joker quest.
with robots, and it's this fucking guy kills robots and then some robots are people, so robot fighting robots, and it's mecha and shit, and there's just some real nice action, and it's got that suffering turned up to 110%. The character interactions are great. Loads of characters are memorable. and just so many of them die horrible, horrible deaths, which leave all the players heartbroken. It happens again and again, and most of the time it's due to the main character's fuck ups, but the main character for some reason is incredibly lucky at not dying, which just leads to this amazing clusterfuck of the main character going through the world, basically breaking absolutely everything and ruining everything for everyone. Joker Quest is fantastic. It's well written. It's been going on for ages, and even though it does have some slow periods due to the very awkward time zone and infrequent running, I think it's one of the best things that quests have to offer. So if you haven't read Joker Quest, read it.
Well, Joker Quest is one of the um, notable past quests I have been, or still going quests, I've been working through. Uh, the main thing I can point out is the SUP-TG archives are actually missing several of the early threads. They may be able to be found on other archives, but a lot of the other archives are down these days as well. But Joker Quest, from what I have read of it, is quite deserving of all the praise it has gathered.
Yeah. How far are you into it?
Um, I have to check. I haven't even reached thread 20. That's what I mean when I say I'm terrible at archive diving. I've been meaning to read it
I
all
have been trying
year.
to read Joker Quest ever since the first thread came out 2012, and I still haven't managed to get past thread 3.
Yeah, there's a bit of a wall where it's sort of
No,
cringy
Yeah.
archives
when it's sorry, go
archives
ahead,
are a
Luke.
sort of thing where I seem to find pretty much anything to do except read them, even though I certainly enjoyed the bits of Joker Quest I have read. Uh, Actually sitting around committing the time to reading through significant amounts of it is something I never quite seem to get around to doing, which I actually feel quite bad about. It's a good quest from the introduction, and I feel like I'm doing it a disservice by not reading it.
Well, yeah, Joker Quest is a very, very good quest. So, yeah, if you're listening, I really recommend you give that a try. So, let's go for the final Spuds quest.
I've had a problem where a lot of a lot of my a lot of my favorite quests are either real or my other favorite quests are either made by Twen or maybe a bit too similar to one of the other quests I've discussed. And well, I think or they're fan fiction, so they're inherently shit. Now, I think that for all of its issues, the Dragon Slayer quest on Anonkun is one of my favorites. And I, to some extent, I'm not sure why it came to that to be that way because a lot I do not like any other of Nox's. The guy, was it Nox who wrote Dragon Slayer? I think yeah, Nox's quest even remotely as much as I like Dragon Slayer. But in any case, Dragon Slayer is set in a setting where humans cannot use magic normally. They, but there are monsters which can use magic, including a lot of a lot of sapient and sentient monsters, and they are magical. So in order to use magical power, they have to harvest in different ways, harvest the corpses of these fallen monsters, some of which are essentially godlike beings, and they either make weapons out of them or they eat their corpses in order to transform into beings which are sort of half monster, half man, which can use magic. The problem with both of these is that if you do it, you eventually go insane, and you are either possessed by the weapon, which has gained sentience, or you you transform too much and you lose your sentience and become a murderous animal. And in this world, dragons are like the ultimate beings. They're invincible gods. And the thing is that the main character, for the first time in history, just killed one and found a newborn dragon in where in the lair of the dragon she just killed. And this is sort of a problem because it the dragons are sapient, and should you kill one just because of what it has the potential of becoming? And eventually she decides that she has to raise it. And the quest is about the struggling with what remains of the main character's sanity and stability, and also interacting with the newborn dragon. And there's not a lot more I can say about it, to be honest. So how does that sound to you?
Well, I like a lot of the core ideas in play, but am I right in saying that there was kind of a shitstorm at some point? I feel like I've heard people talking about the quest hitting a rocky patch. But I don't know if I'm perhaps confusing it with something else.
No, you're absolutely right. No, you're right. You're right. Dragon Slayer quest is one of the has a legendary shitstorm, you could say. Like I can't remember a worse one on Anonkun, though there's been a couple that's been just as bad on TG. But I mean, I think it's still worth reading, even if you get angry at the end at that point. It's still worth it, even if you drop it that very second. Like I think I remember MZion dropped it the moment big shitstorm came up and never touched it again. But even if you do that, I'd still
Honestly
recommend
speaking,
it.
it was really,
And
it was
honestly,
actually quite
MZ, do you
entertaining for a
regret
bit.
reading it?
But uh, yeah, the shitstorm. Of course not. Yeah, I liked it.
Well, I mean, you dropped it, but you regret reading as much as you read, considering the shitstorm.
So yeah, uh, I've got like one more quest then, which I think is, I don't think I've talked about it on this show before. Um, but I like it quite a bit. Um, it's sort of like my own guilty pleasure. It's a quest that hasn't that's run for
You
years. Like it's been going on for years, always on quietly in the background. It's got a very small dedicated fan base, and yes. So it's called Golden Empire.
I'm getting some.
I think I might know where this is going, but continue.
Yeah, it's called Golden Empire. It's a quest on um, it's a quest on Aiken. Very long or fiction.live. It's a very long quest, and it's this sort of feudal Roman inspired um magical girl thing where there are magical girls and they're basically put into a big militia where they use magic and guard the countryside and whatever. And then after like a year or two service to the military, they're free to do whatever. Some become mercenaries, but others get picked up by what are essentially feudal houses. Or they rise through the ranks and do missions and whatever. Um, the main character is my pretty much. I think the quest is like amazing in so many ways. There's a really good, strong, developed side cast. The main character's powers are very interesting. Um, the way it's written is absolutely fantastic. It's a very big, thriving world. My only problem with it is that sometimes it feels like the character is a bit too perfect because everybody else has their flaws and a lot of like really bad things that happen to them and they deal and have to struggle with them, but the main character sort of seems to get off free. But it's this amazing, fantastic world that the QM has crafted. It's completely different to any other story like that I've read. And as far as things go, I think it's like wholly unique. It's one of the things that I really loved about. If I had to think of like what really made me enjoy questing, I think that is probably going to be one of them. I think it's like absolutely fantastic.
Well, from what you described there, the world building and character things all sound like the sort of thing I would look for in a quest. So I think that's one I will definitely check out in my own time. Uh, as a you know hard yes.
Yeah, it's got magical girls and it's
Not really
got
much else I can say actually. Just
yeah, so it's a yes. Well, that's good to know. I'm glad you enjoy it.
yeah,
Well,
just
I hope you enjoy it even.
sold it well.
Well, I think that's our three from each of us. Thank you very much for giving us your feedback, Moloch. It's been very interesting. Spuds, is there
I'd
anything else
like
you want
to.
to
I
do?
actually like to ask
We
more.
do have a bit of a
Of I think I know the answer already, but if we took the three quests I talked about and the three quests MZion talked about as a whole, which set of
Well, I'd
quests
probably err
seem
on
more
MZ's
interesting
side of
as
things.
a collective?
Uh,
That's
although I could not entirely say whether or not that's what details he emphasised.
about yeah. I That's what I expected. Yeah.
victory at last.
So that's all I wanted to ask. So now, bonus round. We try and pitch a
All
quest
right,
which we really hate, but we try and pitch it in a way that
all right, cool. I got it.
it makes it
There's this
interesting.
fucking quest, right?
Or
It's
maybe not
it's
hate,
about this
but
dude
which
who's
really
this useless
irritates
piece of
us.
shit with no superpowers in a
And
world where everybody's got fucking superpowers, and he's sent around to take care of some people who have got superpowers. Sort of like this fucking sick, twisted joke. And the main character is this complete fucking blockhead, and everyone around him is a complete dick. And it's just, I mean, there are some cute waifus in it or whatever. It's called Princess Guard Quests. Don't read it. Yeah, that's mine. I hate that quest. Why did you make me read it, Spuds? Fuck you.
I'm detecting some minor hostility here.
Well, there's a quest which I, well, I mean, it's his own fault. He was the one who came up with the suggestion for looking at the big shitstorms of the past. I think it might have been me, but whatever. It was probably me actually. But in any case, this there's this quest which really fucking irritates me on space battles, but I keep reading it anyway, even though I hate it. It's like I almost enjoy my hatred of it. It's not actually written technically that badly. It's just for it's just how it's like it's called Hair of the Bruce. It's set in the battle tech setting, but the thing is there are no mechs in it anywhere. Like there's not been a single mech battle. The only combat related thing was that it was like an orbital bombardment happened as an attempt to assassinate someone in the middle of the quest. It The main character is like 12 or 13 or 14 years old, and she is a genius heir to a dynasty, and and the whole quest is so that the QM can act out his fetish for psychology and how psychology relates to economics and shit, and how psychology is really important, and also his libertarian Christian politics and how libertarianism is the best thing in the world, and all of that stuff, which is strange because BattleTech is a feudal setting about people in giant robots shooting at each other with some military, with like with like medieval politics in space type deal. And it seems like the very worst place to talk about your
You know,
libertarian
normally
psychology
I try
fetish,
and
and
approach things
that's
with an open
Arrow of the
mind,
Bruce on
but
Space Battle.
I have to admit that sounds like one of the biggest car wrecks I have ever heard of, and I've heard some pretty nasty car
The thing
crashes.
is, it's not a car wreck. It just pisses me off. It's well written, and the audience is likes it, and
Oh,
it's not. There's no
well, it still sounds
shitstorms or
awful.
anything. It's not a car wreck by any stretch. It just pisses me off. It's not like it's not like Princess Guard Quest, which is a genuine fucking car wreck where I've no idea why. Well, everybody, most of the people who read it eventually started hating it, and her Arrow of the Bruce is not at all like that. But I still hate Arrow of the Bruce more than I hate Princess Guard Quest, to be honest.
Well, then, I think then that since it's, past midnight, we should get to wrapping it up then. I want to say, yeah, before we do that, I want to say thank you for
Yeah.
joining us, Mark. Um, I really appreciate your sort of last minute jumping into this. You've been a fantastic guest. So before we end, why don't you tell us,
So
just repeat for us your name and what quest you run and when you're running it next.
Well, my QM name is Moloch. I'm running Heavenly Child Quest on the graveyard that is QST, and I will be running next in approximately 15 hours.
Spuds, do you want to go next?
What about you, MZ?
No, he'll finish up. Well, after he says it, he'll also like do the outro for the podcast. That's how we do things. Yeah, don't fuck it. Don't mess with it. This is how it works. So I run Dogs of War. I'm running next on Sunday around at 8 o'clock, which I've done with, and that's what I've been doing last couple of weeks. So yeah, it's worked out okay, I guess. But yeah, Dogs of War running at 8
I'm
o'clock.
MZion.
It's
I run quests on Aiken
unironic
and,
isekai,
Once Upon a Time
and
TG, and I'm
that's
considering
me.
trying some other
So
sites.
MZ.
I run a lot of quests. The one I'm running right now is this dumb meme quest, which you probably shouldn't read unless you're suffering. It's about magical girls that fuse together to become better waifus. But
I mean,
if they fuse
technically,
together
it
permanently,
was
the old
running
ones die in
during
the
this podcast.
process. You got to convince them it's totally good. And it's called Shin Maguka Tensei because memes. And it's running literally as soon as we finish this podcast.
Literally right now, actually, from what
I like
Yeah,
quests.
it started running before this podcast, was running during
Oh
this
yeah, well
podcast,
thank
and
you
it's going
guys
to
for listening,
continue
and we'll be
running
back
after
next
this
week.
podcast. Yeah, see you.